Okay, let's look at the rest of the big ideas in this class besides the schedule or the learning plan. The major assignments, you'll notice that I've left off the due dates on this chart. I'll ask you to refer to the syllabus for your particular semester and what the due dates are, but let's go through each of the major assignments just so you can see. They're pretty evenly distributed. I do expect you to attend and participate, and you do get some points for that, so that's awesome. There's something called an informal learning activity that I'll explain later, but very quickly, it's a way for you to go have some fun and go learn something completely on your own. Um, you know, in an unstructured way so that you can experience like what it's like to learn from media. There's the design activities, and they're due throughout the course. They are 20% total. There are four of them, so they're about 5% of your grade each. You'll see that the weighting, the points don't actually reflect the amount of work that goes into them. So anyways, so then we've got buddy feedback that I want you to give. And that's really important. So that's another 10% of your grade. The instructional design project itself, just participating on a team, you're going to have a chance to report out to each other and that sort of thing. That will get you 15% of your grade. And then the instructional design project itself, the deliverables, the report, and even what I'm calling an e-poster, that's the big one. And so that'll be 35% of your grade, which uh, should add up to 100, and if it doesn't, I will correct it and let you know in class. Okay? So let's get to the good stuff. What are these instructional design activities? Again, there are four of them, and they follow the major steps of the instructional design process. You do a needs assessment, which means you figure out what's the situation like, what do your learners need, what do they have access to, how can you use it, what are the goals that people have for this project, what are the things that they think would just be a slam dunk and knock that thing out of the park. Once you know all that, you can map out a course that gets you from where you are to where you want to be. Um, that's a big step, and it takes quite a bit of work, but it's a worthy investment. And once you get that course map nailed down, the rest of it all sort of falls into place because you'll grab from that course map your objectives. Once you know what your objectives are, you can align them with your test items, and then you can start creating course activities for those objectives and test items. So there are four of them, and that's what the four of them are. Now, the good news is that those four instructional design activities all sort of build up to the actual instructional design project. Okay? For the instructional design project, you're going to make a team. It can be a team of 2 to 4 people. You're going to select a project focus. So up until this point, you've individually been working on those instructional design activities all on your own for a potential project. Now you may have to give up the work that you've done to help tag on to somebody else's project. Um, I know it sounds painful, but it actually worked out really well in the past. I think some people struggled once they really started to design something through those activities. They realized it was a lot less feasible than they thought, and so it worked out well for a lot of people to sort of switch gears and then work on another person's project. Now, if you can find a project team really early in the semester, you can actually break up the work of the project so that each of you is doing individual work on the activities, but it all comes together for the project. So what you basically do is on the first or second week of class, you figure out how to split up the project into two pieces. Each of you works individually on those two pieces, and then at a certain point in the semester, you come back together and you work on the final project. But again, the goal is to work all by yourself on the four activities, and then those four activities should contribute meaningfully to the project itself. Okay? Um, For that project, you are going to develop an activity for one or two objectives. Actually develop it, not just design it and think it through, but develop it, implement it, and evaluate it. And that's why that was worth so many points on the syllabus. Okay, take the time to look through the instructional design project in the syllabus and in the content part of the ELC. Read through what it's about. Your project should contain a lot of different elements. There's going to be a lot of writing, an executive summary, a needs assessment, an analysis of the learner in the context, the course map that I talked about, objectives and test items, etc., etc., etc. Okay, and then at the very end, what you're going to do is you're going to create an e-poster, which is basically a PowerPoint, and you're going to present it through a screencasting tool. Like right now, I'm using QuickTime on my Macintosh to screencast, which that's a valid option, but there are other ones that I'll talk about in class. There's a few things I want you to note about the instructional design project itself. There's a big difference between design and develop. So this is going to take a little while to sink in, I think, for some folks. And so I start early and I start hammering this out really early. Designing means you sort of write out what your plan would be for a course, but you don't actually develop the materials. You don't develop a handbook. You don't develop any handouts. You don't develop any PowerPoints. You don't do any of that. You write them out and describe what you're going to need for a specific unit or multiple units. So what you're going to design, what you're going to describe to another person is a course that contains 2 or more units. So we're going to get into what a unit is and isn't. You can look ahead. There's a video on what is a course and it will explain that. But for now, just bear with me. You're going to map out 2 or more units of a course, and then you're going to design one unique lesson for each member of your team. So 2 team members, 2 lessons. 4 team members, 4 lessons. And this is just designing. Then you're going to develop and evaluate one of those. Okay. I know it says 1 unit there, but I'm very flexible about this because what's most important is that you find a group of people you can test your stuff on. And so sometimes it doesn't work out to be a complete unit. Sometimes you do pieces of a lesson at one point and pieces of a lesson at another point. So we're going to work this out individually or with each team. If it works out, you can teach an entire unit. Like if you can get a group of teachers for 2 hours to sit down and go through a couple lessons, that would be really fantastic. But it's also not reasonable in a lot of places. And so what we'll do is we'll come up with a way so that you develop and evaluate the equivalent of 1 unit in a way that makes sense. But the key take home here is that you will develop materials, media, and assessments. You'll deliver those. You'll take those assessments, you'll evaluate those, you'll tell me what you know about how well your instruction worked and didn't work based on those assessments, and then you'll submit a written summary of both the design, pictures of the development, like screenshots, and the evaluation, and you'll present it as that online screencast, okay? So, good stuff. A lot of work, though. I'm not going to lie. It is a lot of work in this class, but it's good work because it's going to, hopefully you can find something that will be meaningful to you and to the people that you work with. And that's the real goal of this class. Again, I try and be very flexible about this stuff so that it works for you in your context. So please don't panic at this point. Know that I want it to work and I want it to make sense for your context. And then there's that informal learning activity. It's just a way for you to experience what it's like to learn from educational media on a topic of your choice. It's a way for you to reflect on the role and value of media-based resources for learning. You can choose to just look for stuff for your project, or you can choose to look for something that has nothing to do with your project. I don't care. You're going to submit a brief written reflection about the experience when you're done. So, yeah, we're almost done here. For next week, read the syllabus. Read about the instructional design activities. Again, disregard those due dates. Read about the buddy feedback. Read about all of the things that you're doing. I'm guessing that the table should make a little bit more sense now. Think of it this way: these IDAs are a place for you to practice and get feedback from peers and from your instructor. They're meant to build up and into the instructional design project itself. And that's where you take the work you've done on those individual activities and really polish them and finesse them and develop them. Okay? All right. I do want to point out, yeah, that's not forums. That should be forums. There are discussion forums in the ELC that you can post questions to. If you don't know what those are or how to use them, you can always email me your questions, okay? All right. Yeah. Well, good luck. Again, I tried to keep the first class asynchronous so that you could fit it in your schedule and that sort of thing. Um, let's see here. Yeah, I think that'll do it. Okay. All right. Uh, Again, good luck, and I will see you. It's actually the second week of classes, but again, I am here by email. Just go ahead and email with any questions that you have. Okay.